Well, looks like the stream is now happening. What's going on, everybody? This is Robert Phoenix, transmitting, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. As I move over to YouTube just a little bit to see what's happening now. And let's see what we got going on here. Going to my channel. Make sure the stream is connecting all the way through. And it looks like we are almost there. 5 waiting. Okay. So I'll give you a brief breakdown as to how the stream works. This technology that I'm working with. So essentially what I do is I start on my computer and I use an encoder. And the encoder from my computer goes through the internet. And it goes into a third party, which is my broadcast partner, Boxcast, and then they send the signal to their streamer, which bounces back to my computer and the page that it's on, and then in turn that signal gets sent to YouTube. So I'm going through about 4 different channels. Like yesterday, when I signed off, what happened was, everybody said you got cut off. Well, I got cut off because I basically ended the stream, and because there's a lag time between the various streams, it looks like that I got cut off. When in actuality, it was kind of a graduated end to the show, which wasn't graduated at all. I hope this makes sense. I'm just giving you a look behind the process here and how it works, so that you understand that it goes through about 3 different channels before it actually gets to YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, Nathan Stoltman from Lift the Veil, whom I have talked about from time to time, he actually said on his show the other night that he has not been able to, he had a strike against him. Apparently they went back, the lords of YouTube went back and found a video that he had done about 4 years ago, which was, I think, listed as private. Not anybody could see it, but it was on his channel, listed as private, so they hit him with a strike. And he was not able to upload onto his channel. Well, that happened to me. That's why I've been able to upload any of the shows that Emily and I have done. Speaking of which, I think we're going to do a show this week. There's a lot going on. So I know what that's like, and mine was for different reasons. Mine was because I was doing something different. I was trying to watch something on YouTube on a private channel because I had a piece of malware on my computer, and wouldn't allow me to view a video. So as a result of that, I decided, well, let me upload it to YouTube, make it private, and I'll use YouTube as my little private theater and watch this video. Well, YouTube saw that it was actually a commercial video and that they decided to hit me with a strike. So I can't upload for probably about another 2 months. It's 3 months. 3 months. You will not be able to upload if you get 1 strike to YouTube. Another little piece of their absolute tyranny when it comes to this realm, which is why if you do not like YouTube, come over to 15minutesofflame.com. That's where this broadcast and stream originates and then gets echoed and bounced to YouTube. And I'm doing this because I'm trying to eventually migrate people over and have it solely there. But at the very least, if indeed this is going to get shut down at some point, or if YouTube plays its hanky-panky with me, I'm always streaming live from my website. That's where it starts. It does not start with YouTube. And that in and of itself is different. Anyway, Nathan's all freaked out and he's having a hard time. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is we get to discuss the topics of the day. And guess what? Yesterday, I got into what happened over the weekend in Austin and my observations of the city. And within 24 hours, my observations of the city were completely and utterly confirmed by the appearance of one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, it feels like she's a person that is actually on speaking on a book tour versus actually being a congresswoman for a district that she doesn't even live in New York State or New York City or just outside of New York City. So this is a really unusual thing going on with her, right? She's like, she's become like this rock star, and she just goes wherever she wants. She stays wherever she wants. She's on this show. She's on that show. She's talking to Congress. She's, at South by Southwest, and she's promoting, essentially, she's promoting Agenda 21. And that's what she's here to promote. And she's always, here's the thing about Ocasio-Cortez that people need to pay very close attention to, okay? Ocasio-Cortez and people that are going to be coming up behind her, and trust me, they will be coming up behind her. What they are doing is they are promoting a platform of positivity. This is really important. Even Andrew Yang, who I'll get into at some point, is promoting a platform of positivity. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that they're basically saying we have so many resources, we have so much at our disposal. Why limit what we can use to improve our world? And if we come from that place, then we have a truly democratic platform to begin to initiate these programs. And in a lot of ways, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is kind of the summation of a kind of a new age arc and a new age canon. Because when you listen to her talk, she begins to get into some of these kinds of new age ideologies about abundance, and there's a lot going on about that, right? That she. Sorry, listen to me. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted there. But if you listen to her, and I'm going to read you part of her talk that she gave. She was moderating a panel at South by Southwest. And again, remember, yesterday I talked about how South by Southwest went from being a music-oriented event to now this kind of massive, kind of cultural, multi-platform launch. So Ocasio-Cortez would be the equivalent of like an artist, like a music artist. And what she's doing now is she's promoting a new record. And the new record is her form of socialism. But keep in mind that she's using positivity, she's using hope, and she's using energy that is very, again, I'm going to use the word new agey, in order to get people turned on and switched on to her ideas. Now, here's what's happened with the conservatives and the Republicans, is that it's a party and it's an ideology that's reactionary, right? They want to shut things down. They want to shut down excessive spending, wastefulness. They want to shut down government interference. They want to limit, which I think is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. At the end of the day, it is not the stuff of vision. It's not. I'm just telling you, it's not the stuff of vision. It's the stuff of adulthood, right? I mean, when you get to become an adult, guess what happens? In many cases, a person's ideology or a person's philosophy or a person's hopes and dreams that they have when they're young, they begin to realize that the world doesn't always work that way. Now, in some cases, it might pan out, and I'm not saying that it can't pan out. In fact, I'm a favor of it panning out so that a person can have a meaningful life and a meaningful existence and create in a way that is going to be both useful and inspirational. Okay, so I'm not poo-pooing this idea that, dreams and visions are the stuff of kids. Then you grow up and you realize that it's all a bunch of bullshit. There's some of that involved. There is some of that involved. And, when we have the two sides that really can come together, we have a model of a potential for society that could be very interesting, a culture that can be interesting. Some of the things that Ocasio-Cortez talks about might have some merit, but they don't have merit when they're so far out that part of the New Green Deal, which she did not write, by the way, but part of it is to basically re-engineer every single living structure in this country that's untenable. You know, it's untenable because what happens is that they've got a budget for that, and that budget is basically the entire GDP of the planet. Okay, you know, so it's kind of like your sweet 16 girl coming to you and saying, "Hey, Dad, I'd really like to rent out Disneyland for my sweet 16. Can we do that, please? I'd just love to have me, my 10 besties, just have the whole park to ourselves, right?" Like, as a parent, you're like, we can't do that. We can't do that. I can't afford to rent out Disneyland for every single one of you and your 9 besties or 10 besties. So that's where the other side comes into play, right? It's like, okay, we can't really do this, but maybe there's some ideas here that we can actually wrap our head around. One of the things that we're going to be moved into is this kind of, how do I say this? It's going to be, for all intents and purposes, it will be moved into the false new age. And I've been thinking about this ever since yesterday's broadcast or stream. And I've talked about this time and time again. The new fascism will not be a fascism, although I'm sure there will be, sorry, I was a little unplugged there. Wow, apologize. I'm sure there will be a fascism. It could go, control can go two separate ways, but in very kind of polaric ways. One is the boot at your neck type of fascism, which is possible. The other is a model of control where people don't even know they're being controlled. And I believe that's the model that they want to move this towards, this thing called society or third dimensional existence, that they want people to believe that they're living in kind of a higher vibration realm of false enlightenment. And I talked about this yesterday as it relates to Austin, and it relates to the what I believe will be the coming version of Soma. There'll be some kind of like compound that people will take in order to cope and feel like they're, you know, semi-enlightened. And everybody having that same kind of experience together. Let me read you some of the stuff from Ocasio-Cortez's time yesterday at Austin. Let's see. There's everybody in the chat room. What's going on? Hey, there's Robin. Hi, Robin. Judy. Sticky Marks. What's going on, Sticky Marks? Let's see. By location. Yeah, you can bounce back and forth. Let me go to the other chat room. See what's going on there. Says Chris and Steve. Finally, we watched a video by someone sporting a Reagan mug, complaining correctly the AOC is merely an actress. Reagan played the role of a lifetime. Ocasio-Cortez she's not a politician representing her district. Let's be aware of that. Let's be clear about that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read this. RollingStone.com, which of course is a mouthpiece and always has been for the counterculture. The counterculture is now the dominant culture to a large extent. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spoke at South by Southwest on Saturday night, covering topics ranging from capitalism to automation and political moderates. The breakout star of the incoming freshman class. See, the breakout star. It's like she's a movie star. Spoke with moderator Brianna Gray, senior politics editor at The Intercept, at the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the New Left event. You see, again, this is when 20 years ago, South by Southwest, this wouldn't be happening. They'd be talking about a new record by, I don't know, who would be the equivalent? Natalie Merchant or somebody like that, right? I mean, this is what South by Southwest has become. When asked about political moderates and incrementalism, Ocasio-Cortez didn't hold back, saying, "Baby steps are not the way to solve our problems our nation faces. We become so cynical that we view we view cynicism as an intellectually superior attitude," she said. And we view ambition as youthful naivete. When the greatest things we've ever accomplished as a society have been ambitious acts of visions, the man is worshipped now. For what? Like, or for what? So again, this points to this idea that what she is offering, or what she has become a spokesperson for, is, guess what? The four-letter word HOPE, hope. So this is Obama 2.0. Okay, and I'm all about vision. I'm cool with vision, but whose vision are we agreeing to? Correct, right? When addressing the scourge of racism in America, is there a scourge of racism in America? That's a false premise. Sorry. Ocasio-Cortez pointed to Ronald Reagan as an example of drumming up racial fears. It's funny, she didn't point to Obama drumming up racial fears and separating, dividing, and conquering, using every single kind of Class B event on the police blotter that they could find, while weaponizing Black Lives Matter to go after the so-called racial scourge in America. Antifa was also weaponized during that time. Antifa made their debut during the election cycle with Donald Trump. They made their debut in California, both in San Jose, and the event that took place in, where was that? San Mateo, at the hotel. It was a riot scene at the hotel. It was Burlingame. So we saw the weaponization of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, which of course furthered this idea that Trump is a racist, that America is racist, but Ocasio-Cortez won't go there. Ilhan Omar might go there. She won't. So she said Reagan pitted white working class Americans against brown, black working class Americans to screw over all working class Americans. When he started talking about welfare queens, she said, no, 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 and no. What happened was that was when we saw the rise of globalization and corporatism. The same globalization and corporatism that supports you ninny. Talking about the new Green Deal, proposed legislation to address climate change, as well as the shifting economy. She said it prioritizes those most in need. We fix the pipes in Flint first. We fix the electrical grid in Puerto Rico first. And we fully fund the pensions of coal miners in West Virginia. She said, causing the crowd to break out into cheers. Now, this is an interesting strategy because now she is positioning herself as being a populist. When she embraces the coal miners of West Virginia, this goes back to the coal miner strikes, the great coal miner strikes, of the teens, the 20s, and the 30s, where coal miners struck for their rights and their safety. She's positioning herself as a populist. Ocasio-Cortez spoke out about the economy's shift towards automation and robots. This is what I wanted to bring up. Saying workers shouldn't be fearful of this kind of future and instead should embrace it. She brought up an idea proposed by Bill Gates called a robot tax. Who talked about a robot tax? I talked about the robot tax, about 2 or 3 years ago. I got into this automation, AI shit. It's not going to just be robot tax. It'll be robot rights. Okay? It's happening. They would tax companies who automate processes at a rate of 90%. The government would then reinvest the money in retraining workers for new jobs. Yeah, what new jobs? What new jobs? What new jobs are we talking about? Because once you open the floodgates to automation will just come in and take pretty much every single new job that exists. I mean, trust me, this is a pipe dream. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. What Gates is really talking about is taxing corporations, but it's easier to say tax a robot. We should be excited about automation because what it could potentially mean is more time educating ourselves, more time creating art, more time investing and investigating the sciences, more time focused on invention, more time going to space, more time enjoying the world that we live in, because not all creativity needs to be bonded by a wage. Okay, this is crack. This is crack for the millennials and the generation coming up from the millennials, and even certain boomers who will think about the 60s and the human potential of the 60s, this will be cracked to them too, if they're not scared shitless of Ocasio-Cortez. Now, again, the world that I see, and this is based on what I saw with Austin, is a type of fascism that's a soft fascism. It's a fascism where people's needs are met, they're controlled, and as long as you stay within, they'll redraw the lines, okay? So let's say this is the box that we're living in. And in some ways, it is the box that we're living in. But let's say this is the box that we're living in, right? It's this big, and this is what we know of as the box. And we have defined limits from the box. What the new green dream, the false Aquarian age, the new, in quotes, enlightenment will be going from this box to this box. It'll be a bigger box, but it'll still be a box. It's just like being a free-range chicken. They just expand the boundaries of the coop, right? That's the new box. By the way, Pluto, the book that I'm in. Anyway, that's where they're taking this thing. That's where it's going. Bill Nye, the science guy, he showed up and he played the role of the older, concerned white guy. Well, what about us? We're scared. We don't know where this is going. We're in uncharted territory and we're turning the world over to you and your generation. How can we feel safe? Right, that's kind of the role he played. Now, if we want to have a different kind of culture, we're going to have to get involved. We're going to have to get involved. It means you got to get off the sidelines, okay? Because the new world is ramping up, and they are going to create a new model for the new world. And Ocasio-Cortez is going to be the tip of the spear, and she's going to promote everything that's going to be positive and fun and positive and fun. And if people have been in a cycle of dissension and a cycle of fear and a cycle of enmity, she is going to be the cannabis vape that they will respond to. Now, remember, we live in a continuum, and the continuum has to do with problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic. Okay, the Hegelian dialectic, and Ocasio-Cortez is connected to Trump in this regard as she performs a piece of the Hegelian dialectic. Trump began the process of deconstruction. He began to become an agent of chaos, which I've talked about again and again and again. The system as we know it is being dismantled. And if you don't see it, you're not paying attention. Okay, it is being dismantled before our very eyes. I've talked about this before, the fourth turning. We are in the winter of America. We are in the winter of the planet in many regards. Okay, so things are shutting down and deconstructing. Now, where Ocasio-Cortez comes into play is that she becomes the solution to the problem and the reaction. So the problem at some point was Donald Trump. That became the problem. That was the problem. Donald Trump became defined as the problem. Donald Trump, who represents the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male, he became the problem. He became an archaic image in some ways. Even though when he stepped onto the scene, he was not that. Trump was about as maverick and as radical as you can get as somebody who came in from the outside and said things and did things that were off the script and did not conform to the party or the party of nicety, politics, the party of, in a lot of ways, the rules of engagement as related to the election process. He didn't abide by those rules. Just like Ocasio-Cortez isn't abiding by the rules now. She's not concerned with representing the people from New York. She's concerned about representing the people from America and the people from this planet. She can give really two shits about the people in New York. We saw that. She did a thumbs down on Amazon. Is Amazon perfect? No, it's not perfect at all, right? But it could have provided a significant amount of jobs and structure, infrastructure, and growth in New York. And of course, she led the resistance around that. Now she's got a watershed moment in her political career. So what we're seeing now is that Ocasio-Cortez is part of the problem. Trump is the problem. The reaction was anything anti-Trump. That was the reaction. The reaction was racist, fascist, misogynist, homophobe, bigot, you name it. It was in there, even though in many cases it's absolutely not true. But that's okay because truth doesn't matter when we're dealing in innuendo and we're trying to paint a picture of somebody who becomes an object of scorn and opposition. Oh, by the way, they're not going to go for impeachment. You know why they're not going to go for impeachment? Because there's nothing there in the Mueller investigation. Now, I think something's gone on behind the scenes with the Mueller investigation. And I know a lot of people think that Mueller was working for Trump. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows, to be honest with you. No, he's working for Trump because they want to get Hillary. Who knows? I don't think so. But here's what I do think. I think that at some point there were moments where in that investigation, behind closed doors, Trump was probably compromised. And I think he's a compromisable figure. Anybody in politics or business at a super high level, trust me, they're compromisable. They've got ghosts and skeletons in their closet. And by the way, we're going to get into the Jeffrey Epstein stuff today a little bit. Big news on that front. So we have the problem. Problem is Trump. Reaction is anything but Trump. The solution, AOC. You see how that works? Now, is there a bigger kind of hand moving this program along? I'll tell you right now, Sheldon Adelson doesn't give a shit. Sheldon Adelson only cares about his empire, Israel having the third temple built, which Trump will probably get done. Now, the good news is, theoretically, is that Ocasio-Cortez can't run for president in 2020. So I think there's probably a very good chance Trump will win again in 2020, unless, of course, something happens to him physically before then, or something drastic happens in terms of his family and his business and something connected to his kids, which I've been talking about for a while. I think he'll win again. I think he'll be president in 2020. That's my sense here. Again, we got to go through a few things. We got to go through that Saturn-Pluto conjunction next year. Big deal. It's a big deal, and that happens in his fifth house, by the way. So we'll see what happens, but I think he's going, because look at who's running. You know, wait till Middle America gets a hold of Kamala Harris. Holy shit. Wait till you see Kamala Harris on the debate circuit. She's a Scorpio. Kamala Harris is a Scorpio, and she's got a Sun-Mercury conjunction in Scorpio. And she will be, once she gets those claws out, those stingers out, she's going to be really hard to handle. And she won't give a shit. She won't give, just wait. Just wait till you get to see her on the debate circuit. It's going to be high theater. Trust me. And talk about polarizing. It should be incredibly polarizing. She's got skeletons in her past, too. Quite a few of them, by the way. Anyway, I do think Trump is going to be president in 2020 unless we have a catastrophe right around January, February of next year, which could possibly happen. So we're going to have at least another 4 years before Ocasio-Cortez, I believe, is eligible to run for president. However, that said, he's going to have to go through people like Bernie Sanders and Beto O'Rourke, who are going to jump on this socialist program. And they could carry what is being seeded by Ocasio-Cortez forward into that election. But we're dealing with problem, reaction, solution. And the challenge, if you are not into her, if you're not into Agenda 21, if you're not into having your cities be basically reprogrammed to be these somatically induced amusement parks for people that are ready, willing, and able to allow robots to take over the majority production and just eventually upload their consciousness to a virtual reality holodeck. If you're not into that, then you got to come up with something different. And you've got to come up with something that's got some vision, some hope, and something that can match what Ocasio-Cortez is doing. She is setting the bar, okay? And if you're a conservative or you're a Republican, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and embrace some ideas that are going to be visionary and not reactionary and not based on no versus a qualified and informed yes, right? Somebody from the Republicans or the conservatives or the libertarians should step up and say, these are great ideas. They're wonderful ideas, right? But let's really get down and break down how we're going to get there. You know, let's do that. Instead of just saying, the money will be there. Why will the money be there? Because there are corporations that are not paying any taxes, right? Or the super rich are not paying enough in taxes, and that's going to be the tax base. And you just tap into that and pay for everything, break down the war machine. I mean, there's some math here that kind of makes sense. But what do corporations do? They keep their money offshore. What's Apple been doing for years? They have their money in a place like Ireland, and they're not the only company. You know, if somebody can make something cheaper overseas, they're going to go overseas. This has been happening for a while now. China has been the beneficiary of this. And she doesn't talk about China at all. She won't talk about China. Andrew Yang won't talk about China either. I would not be surprised if there's Chinese meddling here somewhere. That's just another piece. Anyway, if we're going to compete in a realm of ideas with this, we have to have our own vision. We have to have something that we can move towards. Something positive based on yes and like we all know, like vaccines, no. Fluoride, no. 5G, no. This is for me. GMOs, no. But those are no's. What we have to do is we have to transform our no into a yes, so that people around the world can, or at least in our own community, buy into or because people will move towards hope in more cases, or faith or positivity, than they will in their kind of closed off box world, right, with some kind of negative or fearful response. What Ocasio-Cortez is doing is she's challenging people's perceptions of fear. Yeah, people think that she's an idiot. I don't think she's an idiot. I actually think she's naive at times, but I actually think she's very smart. You can't do what she's doing unless you have some intelligence. There is a there with Ocasio-Cortez. It's not the there that I want to represent me. Thank you. But I think we can pull from this. And how do we turn our no into yes? That, I think, is something on an everyday life or on the platform of everyday living is something that we can look at. How do we turn our no into a yes? And do it in a way that is real and not something just like, you know, we'll flip a switch and our no. No, it's a little bit sociopathic at some level. But that's the process and transformation, the personal alchemy involved that turns a no into yes, without losing sight of the no. If we don't want fluoride in our water, what do we want? We want good, clean water. We want nature's water. That's what we want. We don't want medicated water. That's our yes. If we don't want 5G signals ripping through our cellular structure, then what's the yes there? Well, we want our atmosphere and we want our environment to be as close to nature as possible. Oh, don't be afraid of technology. Not afraid of technology. What we want is we want responsible technology. We want to be able to grow technology in a way that is congruent with our bodies, with our cellular structure, with our central nervous system, right? So we're in favor of improving technology, but not at the risk of being human, right? I mean, this is what we need to move towards. If we want to have any shot to live in a new world and have an equal voice with a huge number of people that are being entrained by Ocasio-Cortez or David Hogg, whoever, Andrew Yang. These are the Pied Pipers of the next generation. And if we're going to create a new culture, then we have to be in the business of imagination, in as much as they are in the business of imagination and possibility. They're offering people a different kind of system. As this system begins to be engaged in a level of entropy at the highest order, as we watch what happens with the Federal Reserve and the fiat currency, which is bloated beyond any point of redemption. We need to have a different kind of vision. And the libertarian vision can be good to that extent in some ways, because there's some crossover. But let's eliminate the Fed. Let's get the Fed out. Let's have our own system. Let's create something different, something new. If we don't have these things, then what's going to happen is that the right will become ossified, and the conservative ideal of really making sure that our resources are being used responsibly will just wind up, in the dustbin of history. And I think there's merit. There's some merit to what that system represents, particularly because on some level, it is connected to the individual and the family unit, which I think is vitally important. Because we've watched this thing get atomized. And what Ocasio-Cortez and a new wave or new generation is offering up, ultimately, it is not going to be about the family, nor is it going to be about the individual, but it will be about the group. It will be about group consciousness, which is, again, this Aquarian ideal, which is fine on some level. But you've got to be able to be a strong individual in order to participate in a strong group. It starts with a strong individual, a strong family, a strong community, and then you've got what? A strong state, a strong nation, a strong world. It all starts with you and begins to move outwards, right? And we completely lost that. Totally lost that. And now it's like, well, who wants to bring up kids? Who wants to have a family in this fucked up world? People think that. You look around, oh my God, well, I'm going to bring a kid into this world, and it's going to be 5G, and it's going to be robotics, and it's going to be AI, and it's going to be fill in the blank. I would say this is the time to have a family. This is the time to actually experience that, right? That's my 2 cents. Whatever you do, that's fine. I understand the position. I get it. I totally get it. Anyway, I'm just telling you that if we're going to compete in an arena of ideas, that our ideas have to be compelling, they have to be hopeful, they have to have a sense of faith, and based and rooted in realism, right? Have to. And in some ways, the truth or the alternative community was kind of going there. Like when you see somebody like Jordan Sather or Wilcock, whoever, bang the drum for free energy and stuff like that. Yeah, that shit exists. That's the level of disclosure we should be talking about. We should be talking about the technology that's been buried by the deep state, right? I mean, that's what we should be talking about. That's the kind of disclosure that we need. Because buried in there are the technologies that can begin to free us up in a way that AOC is actually talking about. In a way that is here and now. And it could change the game from change the economic game. It's just, that's what we need. And that's where some of this dialogue should be theoretically headed. All right. There's some other stuff I wanted to go over about Epstein, a few other things. Let me check in with you guys. What do we have going here? Let's see. Right, no one should starve on the planet they're born on. This works for food service. Food gets thrown away. Yes. Gold-backed crypto is on the horizon. All right, Charles. There we go. What else do we have here? No way, Robert. She never blinks. She's on some psychotropic drugs. I would agree with you, but I'm telling you, she's a force to be reckoned with. You can diss her all you want, but she's a force to be reckoned with. Zuckerberg doesn't blink either. What else do we have? Let's see. God knows I have to pay off Wazoo for taxes. Absolutely. Jeff Bezos always gets a pass. The rich always do. This is what will be the appeal. This will be the appeal of the new left, right? What else do we have? Let's see. What else do we have? Good news is I'll be okay. So I don't want to leave the house. Okay, so we've got a lot of dialogue going on in the chat room. Let me go to the website here. See what we got going on here in terms of chat. Question for Robert. Is it your up-to-minute best prognosis? There really is going to be a groundswell in sufficient numbers to change the system from within the system. Yes, I do, because the millennials, depends on who you want to change the system, Maury, right? Depends on who you want to change the system. If you want if you are involved in the Ocasio-Cortez Agenda 21, and let's be clear, she is a spokesperson for Agenda 21. She is the frontline advocate ultimately for the smart city. Okay, so let's be clear about that. And if you look at the numbers between Gen Z and the millennials, there could be enough to have that kind of change from within. Okay, I'm of the mindset that we need to have a different kind of cultural response, because everything is being determined ultimately by corporate interests. Because corporate interests, even though Ocasio-Cortez is anti-corporate, corporations are supporting her. And this has always been the case with the left. This has always been the case. If you go back and you look at what happened with the Bolshevik Revolution, corporations supported that. The Bolshevik Revolution was run out of New York City by the bankers. Bernard Baruch, right? Jacob Schiff, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. They were all involved in the Bolshevik Revolution because they wanted the Romanovs out. And they wanted to take over production and manufacturing in one of the largest land masses on the planet. So corporations have always been behind in driving a large swath of the left. Look at Nike and the relationship with Nike and Colin Kaepernick. Nike is this ideal of social corporatism. Corporations driving the new social model. In many instances, they are the version of the new government, right? Nike is as powerful, or if not more powerful, than many third world nations. So let's be clear. We're not talking about just a socialist-driven program or program. It's a corporate socialist. Look at all the advertising. Look at the advertising. The advertising should give you an idea as to who's behind this and who's driving it. So in many ways, Ocasio-Cortez isn't just a spokesperson for the left. She's a spokesperson for the new corporate left. Okay? Eileen says the United Nations mandate is running things now. Absolutely. This is Agenda 21. This is the Rio Summit. It went down in 1992, just before George Bush was leaving office. He went to Rio and he signed away our sovereignty. Look it up. Look at the Rio Summit, 1992. He's on his way out of office. He signs away our sovereignty. Everything from that point forward is taking the same steps that they took with the EU. The idea for the EU began in the teens, right? It was like, we're going to have World War I, and then we're going to have the League of Nations after World War I. And the League of Nations was supposed to be the early version of the EU and the UN. It didn't really work. The League of Nations morphed into the UN. But in that moment in time, there was an idea that the entire European Union would then be created at some point, driven by the Fabian socialists and to some degree the eugenicists, right? Now that turns or transforms into the big Club of Rome meeting, which takes place in the early 60s and completely solidifies the EU. What the Rio Summit did was basically take the EU model and blow it up globally. Okay? So there's a little bit of history for you. Let me get back into the YouTube chat. See what's going on over there. Group conscious sounds, yes, Robert said it, individuals. So we just, here's what I'm going to read a few of the things. But one of the things that I think is important, again, is the practice, the everyday practice. Your life has to be a practice. We got to practice this stuff every day. If we don't practice it every day, we don't get good at it. And this has become very, very clear in my own life, right? I'm a Virgo. I have to practice it. It has to have some validity. Okay, let's go over a few other things. Blackout chaos in Venezuela. We got looting, rotting food, scarcity of news, and death. We have to thank Elliot Abrams, the United States, government, the corporation, not us, we the people. We did not consent to that. But the people who supposedly represent us, which in this case is probably located in the heart of Tel Aviv, the crown city, corporate crown capital, a city of London. These are the people that are pushing and giving the green light to regime change. And how do you foment regime change? You make things so miserable for the people that are living in a place that they have to get on their knees and basically bow to the people that are going to promise that things are going to get better. Please, please, please give us some relief. Yes, 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 yes. We'll turn against our other masters. This is what happens. Here we go. All right, let me read a few other things here. This is big. We got some big news, big news happening. Here we go. Let's go here. Okay, so I wanted to follow up on, and I think I'm going to do this with Emily very quickly. You know, I talked about the Robert Kraft stuff down in Florida, and I talked about the Chinese mafia running those parlors, those massage parlors, and apparently there was a sting operation, and they were going to blackmail U.S. politicians and businessmen. Trump is actually Trump's photographed with the owner of that massage parlor down in Florida. Okay, so Emily and I we're going to do MASH this week, and we're going to get more into the Bob Kraft, Asian orchids of Asia, Lee Cindy Yee, and her relationship with Trump. And these guys who were stupid enough to go in and, you know, get whacked off and become compromised. How dumb is that? We're going to get into that, more of that. Jeffrey Epstein. This is interesting now. Here we go. This is going to be something you really, really want to pay attention to because of how and who Jeffrey Epstein is connected to. Federal court moves to unseal documents in Epstein scandal. Uh-oh. This is a Mercury retrograde moment. If there is ever a Mercury retrograde moment, here we go. It's the Jeffrey Epstein moment. I'm just going to read this to you really quickly. The Federal Court of Appeals in New York on Monday took the first step in unsealing documents that could reveal evidence of an international sex trafficking operation allegedly run by multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein and his former partner, British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. If you don't know who Ghislaine Maxwell is, she is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who served both in the the UK and the Parliament. He served in Parliament. He was also a media baron, a media mogul. He was also a Mossad operative. He also wound up face down in the water next to his yacht. Ghislaine is his daughter. She is up to her third eye in all of the spy jinx that her father was involved in. A 3-judge panel for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit gave the parties until March 19th to establish good cause as to why they should remain sealed, and failing to do so, the summary judgment supporting documents will be made public. Now, one of the things that they'll say is that, number one, there are underage girls or minors involved. Now, they're not minors any longer, but they were then. The second case that they'll make is that there's already been a settlement that's been agreed upon by the parties involved. And that would theoretically theoretically create or state a precedent. And it's like this. Why are we doing this? These people have agreed. They've agreed, and part of their agreement, and the payoff, by the way, it was a civil settlement across the board with all these young girls, Virginia Roberts, all these chicks, right? Young women. They've agreed. They have agreed. Now, I'm not saying that should keep it from being opened back up, but that's the case that Epstein's attorneys will make. So they're going to have to fight against that. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. So here we have the statements made by one of Epstein's attorneys. We're grateful that the court ruled the summary judgment papers are open and they're moving to expedite having them unsealed. It said Stanford, he's representing the Miami Herald. This is not Epstein's people. Said Sanford Bohr, an attorney representing the Miami Herald, which filed motion last year to have the entire case file open. This is interesting. This is being driven by the Miami Herald. So if you wanted to do research, you got to figure out who the publisher of the Miami Herald is, who's on the board, who they're connected to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is being driven by the newspaper, which filed the motion last year to have the entire case file open. The Herald's appeal is supported by 32 other media companies, including the New York Times and Washington Post. So my sense here is they want to get to Trump. They're now moving on from the Russia scandal, which gave them absolutely big zero, and now they're going after the big whale. They're going after Epstein. Now, if they go after Epstein, this is the string that if they're going after Trump and they're using Epstein to do it, this is the string that can unravel everything. Because the Clintons are involved. Alan Dershowitz is involved. You know, I've read the Epstein Black Book, and it's significant. Should I read some of the names again? Let me just find it. Here we go. All right, here we go. I'm going to read you some of the names. There's some redacted pieces here. Let me see. I'll tell you some of the names on his book. Oh, let's see. And there are names that have special designations. Okay, special designations. Let's see. What do we have here? Give me just a second here. This is the actual list. Let me read names. Hold on. Give me 1 sec. Dershowitz, Courtney Love, Trump, Ehud Barak. Those are just a few figures. Who else do we have? Let's see. Griffin Dunn, Alec Baldwin, Ray Fine, Ted Kennedy, David Koch. Who else? New York Post gossip columnist Richard Johnson. So there's whales here. Big whales, right? Big whales. Leslie Wexner, Bruce King, former governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, Peter Soros, the nephew of George Soros. He's in there. Let's see. Virginia Roberts talks about it. Prince Andrew is in there, of course. Of course he's in there. I mean, there are a ton of names, right? There are a ton of names. So once you get into the Epstein files, if you're in this book, you better run for cover in a big way. Let's see who else is in there. I guess those are the big. Those are the. It's funny because the Clintons are in there, but they're not. This is obviously kind of a left-leaning deal. Let me just see if there's anybody else. Just look up Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. Let me see if there's a few other names I can pull out of this that might make some sense to you guys. Michael Carvalho's in there. Who else? John Cleese, the actor, he's in there. Do you see what happens? And once you get into this thing, I'm telling you, it is the scandal of the century. Jennifer Diabo, who I believe is related to Olivia Diabo, she's in there. The Diabo family. Amanda Cutler is in there. Lots of names. Janice Dickinson, remember her? The model, the supermodel with the super plastic surgery face. She's in there. She's not a big whale. But you get some of these people at a lower level and you begin to put the pressure on them. Oh, do you know who's in there? Oh my God, Ellie Weisel. Ellie Weisel is on this list. Wow, how about that? Ellie Weisel is in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. Now, does that mean that he went to Pedo Island? The Duchess of York is in there. Sarah Ferguson is in the book. In a big way, too. She's got a lot of listings. A lot of listings. Who else is in there? Because that list that I was reading came from originally Chris Evans, who I believe is an actor. He's in there. Who else? Let me see. There's so much dirt here. It's incredible. My God. Steve Forbes. Steve Forbes is in the book. So that list that I read they were just skimming off the top. Tom Ford, the fashion guy, he's in here. Just, man, this is just total who's who. One of the Furstenbergs. Three Furstenbergs are in here. That's a big deal. Famous family, very rich. Got some goldsmiths. Man, this is it right here. This is the Rosetta Stone. There's going to be some birds that are going to sing. So I think